Alright, so you don't complain about this video, because you actually told me to do so. I asked you guys what I should do, and so many of you said make a video about wishlisting Planet Coaster 2 features. Now we all don't know when and if it's coming, but hey, let's just assume it is coming. And I had to dig actually pretty deep, because I've done these type of videos in the past. So today we've got 5 brand new things that I haven't really talked about. I still would love to see them. And potentially these 5 things are a little bit more on the unknown side of things, or maybe on the least popular things. I don't know. Anyways, let's start with number 1, which is delivery management. Now, if you've seen many videos in the past I've done about different games, such as Parkitect, or very recently about Prehistoric Kingdom, the update 11, which actually introduced delivery management. I am a big fan of that, not only for the reason that I find this nice in terms of realism, but it also adds a lot to the gameplay, which, as we all agree, or at least I know that a lot of people will agree, the first game, Planet Coaster 1, did not really excel in. So at the end of the day, we always need something to improve the overall gameplay. We talked about weather in the past, we talked about influence of other things in the past, and different approach to how to deal with the time in general. But one thing that would change or mix up things dramatically would be delivery management. So that you would need to, order certain trucks that deliver certain goods, and you have to order more or less trucks depending on how much is going on. You have to order different goods in different seasons of the year, and you have to ensure that you have more than one connection point maybe to your park. Maybe we even have access roads that we have to deal with, somewhat like in City Skylines, where you have the access points to the side of the map, or in many other games as well. You've got different access points that you can attach your park to. That would be super lovely to just have a little bit of a more realistic approach to dealing with the goods, and not just having them appear once you have enough money. Because this is one thing in the past that many people, including me, complained about, that as soon as you have enough money, basically everything is done. You just, purchase as much as you need and everything is there. So how about just making sure that you do have enough delivery access points, delivery trucks, and so on, maybe maintenance for trucks, and so that there is more potential problems to get over that are not actually doable with money in the first place. Well, let's go to the second point now, because it somewhat is tied to it, and this is build planning, or I called it area purchase, but that's maybe not exactly the point. My point is, many theme parks, and I want to refer to Phantasialand in Germany, they always have to deal with the problem that the state, or at least the city around, the shareholders and all the communities around, including, for example, some, agriculture, clubs and so on, they do not allow Phantasialand to grow. And sometimes, if they are allowed to grow, they sometimes can only rent the land, and in certain other areas, they're just allowed to build to a certain height level, for example. And all these type of things have already been in games like that in the past, and I would love to see this back in the game, that for certain areas, specifically in the scenario or in the management mode, we have to purchase areas, or at least lay out areas where we want to build something, Make this what many people who focus on realistic builds actually do. They, plan out an entire area and so on. I want to specifically name No Name Landia, for example, from the Bro Nation and Bro Coasters. That was very nice to see how they always realistically plan the areas in which to go, and I think this would be a very wonderful thing to just enhance the overall gameplay. That, for example, if you want to build a new coaster, you can either purchase a new land or take an existing area and repurpose that one, and then, for example, get some additional land rights or so if you deal with the land available. And again, back to Phantasialand, is potentially one of the most iconic parks when it comes to this point, because Phantasialand has changed so dramatically over the last 15 to 20 years because of the fact that they couldn't just add something to the park. Phantasialand was aimed to be a completely different park if they just would have gotten the new land that they never got. So if they would have put everything new in these new lands, it would be just a way bigger park with a lot of more nostalgic stuff still remaining, but as it wasn't allowed, they had to deal with what they had to deal with, and so that would have been absolutely lovely. But now let's move on to point number 3, which is a completely different one. and something super simple, and that is a material painter. Now hold on, we had a bajillion different materials in the game, and I love piece by piece building, and we also have textures for the ground. But how about a texture painter? I mean, or a material painter? Imagine how much simpler the amount of pieces and the overall piece handling would be if we would have a material painter. And just to be precise, what that would be, that you just have a whole bunch of materials in the game, such as seamless textures that usually are used anyways. For example, if you look in Planet Zoo or also in Planet Coaster, we sometimes have these flexi-color pieces. They obviously always use a seamless texture as a base, and then they have a different diffuse map to it so that you can recolor them and blah blah blah. And so if that would be a paintable option, would be so cool. And we could also have so many more ground textures. Like, for example, imagine we have still the limit of 8 ground textures, for example. Then give us just one flexi-color ground texture in which we could paint the materials on. I feel like that would be wonderful, because in fact, this is one of the most important things about the theme park. You've got so many different ground materials and so many different types of concrete and stone and gravel and all these type of things would need to be in there. And I would totally love a material painter. Number 4 is actually something that belongs onto this material, and that is path elements. And I will talk about this one a little bit longer. It seems to be super simple, but trust me, it would be mega powerful. And here's the thing. We do have obviously path elements that we already had in Planet Coaster, but more so in Planet Zoo, because Just Frontier developed further from Planet Coaster. So we had, for example, educational items for kids, like these kids education points. We obviously had pathing things like planters, or we had benches, and we've got bins, we've got picnic benches, and we've got lanterns, and that's all nice, you know? That's all really nice. But what would be a good thing to enhance the whole game? How about drainages, for example? How about canals, like ploppable drainage and canal as part of the gameplay to avoid flooding of your huge, like, sealed areas? Because you have to think about this. Using so much concrete in a park is obviously a great thing for like making gas flow work, but it's actually not a good thing, especially not in climate change times where heavy rain and so on increases dramatically. You don't want to have this huge sealed area of concrete without any drainage option in there. So how about having these things as an actual workable item? It doesn't even have to be animated or so, it just would need to add a certain amount of, I don't know, drainage capability to your area. There's a way to do that, I guess. That would be lovely. And then you could have all these things as an addition to your path, and really that not only enhances the path, but also like visually, but also content-wise. Like imagine that benches now add a certain amount of restfulness, is that even a word? Or like, recreation area. The more benches you put down, the more recreation you can gain from these areas. That would be a super nice influence. And obviously building up from that, we could have different bin options, and we could have different bench options. Planters could be an actual barrier piece. I never understood that, why planters do not have a barrier. Remember the times? I mean, that's a little one for the OGs, the OG Planet Coaster players. You all know when I say the Pirate Barrel planter has been the first ever barrier piece we've been using. I remember a park of mine that had a bajillion barrel planters below ground to make sure that people don't go in certain areas. And then we were also happy when that was a thing of the past. But planters need to become an obstacle again for guests, because why would you build planters and people can go around? That doesn't really make any sense. But we could build from there. How about sunshades, for example, actual sunshades? Or one more thing is even having like these little rain spray pipe works across the road. We've seen that a lot more recently in big parks, especially in the southern regions, like in Spain or so. They have this very thin hoses actually that go from A to B over the path, and they have like tiny holes in it to create like this light spray of water to keep people a bit more cool when it's super hot, especially in these super crowded areas. There's a huge danger of people overheating, and so these things are generally a very great thing to have, and this would be super cool. But you know, when there's water involved, why not even have these type of drinking fountains, for example? Drinking fountains are super common in theme parks, especially in the US, but I've also seen them more and more in the southern part of Europe. Not so much actually in Germany or like in Central Europe because of the climate, I guess. It's not like that important. Also, specifically when it comes to German, we are not good in giving away free things. Not at all, you know. We are also one of the few countries in the world where like free tap water isn't really a thing unless you actively ask for it. So that's kind of a cultural thing. But overall, I think theme parks do have quite often these drinking fountains. And I remember the first time being in Disneyland, I was super stoked that I could have water for free everywhere, and I was drinking the whole time and peeing the whole time, which kind of annoyed my parents, but I mean, free water, you know. So I would love all these items. I could go on forever because there's so much more we could have, like a whole bunch of path elements. And obviously one big advantage that comes with it is an increased amount of interaction with your guest, making the park feel even more alive, feel even more realistic when you've got, you know, people enjoying the light spray rain from above, people just standing beneath the shade, for example, just to rest for a moment, people, you know, using the drinking fountain, and obviously you could have like, I don't know, card trays for park maps and so on that you can grab out, and like there's so much to do. That would be lovely. Anyways, let's go to my last point, and that's a special one. The last one is a coaster car editor. Yeah, I've thought about that for such a long time, and I wanted to include that in basically all of the videos, but it always barely didn't make it in because other things were even more important to me. And just to make that point very clear, this video is now really based down to these 5 points because I haven't talked in path. I still believe that they are super important, so they have been on my lists for a while now, but other things are way more obvious and way more important to me. So consider this wishlist video as something. If I'm happy about these things because we got all of the other things, we can already say that this game is an absolute banger. But this is the icing on the cake. Coaster car editor. Now, one big flaw for me personally for Planet Coaster 1 is the fact that everything is a somewhat in its own sealed and closed coaster, which is super awkward. You know, you had this, you know, Schwarzkopf looping coaster, for example. You had like a GCI wooden coaster, and then you always had like the one type of coaster track and the one type of coaster car or train on it. I don't know. It's so weird because you have like a manufacturer of a coaster type, and then you have different car and train designs, obviously, that go on top of these coaster tracks. And I would love to see the game deal like that with it. Like, take a Vekoma coaster, and then every car that you put on is obviously a Vekoma coaster car. But hey, let us design the car itself. And it doesn't need to be super elaborate, you know? Just, I don't know, give us 3 or 4 form factors and then add certain things to it. Like a super, like, really tuned down and I don't know, very basic tuning option for a coaster cam with a couple of prefabs that you can mix and match and then get some color schemes in and so on. Somewhat like, and I don't know if any of you have played this, but Pro Evolution Soccer has been my absolute favorite when I was younger, and I was playing Pro Evolution Soccer 5 and 6, and 6 is still my most favorite sports game of all time. They didn't have all the licenses of clubs, and so what they did is they gave people a kit editor where you can basically paint your own kit, and they did such a clever thing in that way that they gave you exactly the options to recreate real life kits with this editor without actually having real kits in there, by just having elements of the real kits. You know, the three stripes from Adidas, for example, weren't in three stripes. My God, that's hard to pronounce. But you actually had two types of things that you could mix. There's one single stripe that was centered, for example, to your shoulder, and then there was another decal that you could use that was two stripes that were to the outside. And if you combined those two, guess what? You have got three stripes on your shoulder, which exactly looks like Adidas. So no one could actually have anything to say about them. Everything was fine, but you could obviously relatively easily create exactly what you wanted. And somewhat like that, I would imagine a coaster card or coaster train editor, by not having any license constrictment or anything like that in, but just have the option or give the option to people to combine these things to real life counterparts, but also give people the chance to build actually new ones, because isn't that also part of a coaster? I mean, if I, for example, want to build a, let's say, Moana type coaster, which would be great, I want to make like a, I don't know, hey shaped coaster train, you know, with like a chicken type of head or something like that. And I would be able to build this myself in a way, at least. And in my imagination, that would be cool. So I don't know, I would love that. Anyways, let's go into the conclusion. The 5 things I was talking about are delivery management, a building or area purchase planning tool, a material painter that lets you paint actual materials on top of everything, basically, the path elements, including like drinking fountains and all these kind of things, and a coaster car/train editor to be able to create our own ones. Now, as a conclusion, as I said many times in this video, these 5 things are not amongst my top 5 or top 10, so this is why it's not my top wish list. It's basically a wish list for things that I would love to see if they nail the foundation of the game. But nevertheless, these things, for me personally, at least one of those being in there would be really great for me personally. If I would need to decide, I have a hard time deciding, to be honest, but I think for the longevity of a game like this, I feel almost like it's the material painter that would give so much flexibility in making sure so many other things. And you know, with every DLC and with every update, Frontier could add a new amount of textures and materials, so enhancing every set that is in the game by factor X. That would be amazing. And right after that is obviously the coaster car or coaster train editor, because it's again such a vital part. And doing this, I don't know how much of a thing that is, but obviously the same would be for flat rides, you know. If you have like a flat ride, for example, or like, let's say like the Ferris wheel, that you could change obviously the Ferris wheel, what is that called? Cards? No, how do you call these things on the Ferris wheel? I don't know, cabinets? I don't know. If you have like these cabinets that can be styled in a way and not only color-wise, would be awesome. Anyhow, that's it, and let's do a little bit of a experiment. I want you to bring into the comments your 3 wishlist items that are not, I repeat, that are not amongst your top 5. So starting from number 6, 7, 8, for example, or if you have like a top 10, for example, take number 11, 12, and 13. Because I really want to know what would be the icing on the cake for you guys. And I want to give you a little bit of an analogy to understand where I'm going with this. I remember when Planet Coaster 1 dropped and I got the first early access stuff and so on, and we were being prepared for Gamescom back in the day, 2016, God, that's ages ago. And they revealed the queues to us, like the fast lane, for example. And we were like, what the heck? We have never been thinking about the fact that this game will even feature a fast lane and fast passes. That was such a aha moment for us, because that is one of the features that, in all honesty, I could live without, you know. I definitely could live without. That's definitely not the major point of a game and what makes the game great or not great. But it's such a cool addition, and that adds so much to the game that I still remember the feeling and the moment when we were told so, and we were discovering this. So think of things like that. This would be awesome. By any means, that's the end of the video. I really hope you liked this little wish list. And again, it's your fault. You made me do the video, so don't complain about me making another video about Planet Coaster 2. There will be many more to follow if the game finally is even being released. But yeah, have a good time. Be happy, guys. Stay positive. At some point, we will talk about the actual game. I'm sure about that. Have a good one. Thank you for watching. And don't forget to subscribe. Bye!